please stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of this show is The Spiritual Side of Cannabis. And the next voice you shall hear will be that of the chaplain of the Lighter Than Air Ministries, Chaplain Dennis Keith Hale. Now it looks like we're all set. Here we go. You've read about him. You have heard all the rumors. So here now, direct from the studios of the Lighter Than Air Ministries in Tardy, California, stepping to the microphone, may I introduce to you the good chaplain, Chaplain Dennis Keith Hale.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was a lovely introduction. I am Chaplain Dennis Keith Hale, and we are here at the Music Sanctuary of the Lighter Than Air Ministries for what is the start of a series of shows, The Spiritual Side of Cannabis, that we hope will be part of your weekly podcast listening. You know, we just came off of a weekend at the Cannabis Cup, and it reaffirmed to me more than ever the importance of spirituality and sort of a ethereal approach to the use of cannabis. Some of it has to do with ritualization, I'm sure. I remember when I was a kid, the ritual of preparing the pot. Acquiring it, of course, was part of the ritual, because it usually meant a field trip of some sort. And off you would go to try to find your friend who had, or whom might know somebody who has, or had known somebody who had. And then you'd get it, and you'd secretively go home, or go to wherever you're going to deal with it on an adult level, and then would become the grinding or the separation. In my case, the separation of seeds and sticks and stems from pot. You know, when we first started buying marijuana back in the 1960s, it was still very much an inner city phenomenon. It was hard to find. And the better it was, the harder it was to find. That seemed to always be the lesson I learned. And I think that ritualization, the methods of preparing and gathering and doing all the things, sort of like cavemen, where we hunted, we gathered, and we got high. And of course, what we had was surrounded by iconography as well. You know, the culture of the 60s weed user included the cartoons of Robert Crumb and all the other wonderful cartoonists. Even our shows were surrounded with art that was intended to be psychedelic, if you would. And you know, a lot of people never took psychedelics. I did, but they lived their psychedelic world through the altered state they were entered into with marijuana. So it's always been a great, wonderful ritual that surrounded it. And I think the ritualization, it really enhances the high. The iconography, like I say, the comic books of Robert Crumb and such, depicted a underworld where drug use was a brotherhood. We all could recognize each other through the stains on our index finger, perhaps. No, that was cigarettes used to do that. That's how your dad would check and see if you were smoking cigarettes. But cigarettes never had the potential of anything. They were part of our youth, believe me. A lot of us went to cigarettes as part of the growing up ritual. Fortunately, I didn't, but everyone else where I worked as a kid at Bob and Cliff's Super Duper Market, everyone would accept, well, I guess not everyone, but a lot of us did, and because they were free or cheap, like gas, when gas was 28 cents a gallon. Those days are long gone. But now a new generation is going to be trying pot, trying marijuana, trying Mary Jane for the very first time. And we want them to know that the procedures, the ritual around it, is what enhances the experience. That ritual, that's part of the spiritual side of cannabis, and it's not to be discounted. We hope that in making a decision to smoke marijuana, that you'll take a look at the historical context a little bit. You know, people who were down and struggling, those in the African American communities, particularly of my youth of the 50s and 60s, that community always had access to pot. The African American community recognized early on how it could smooth out the rough bumps, how pot had some sort of mystical and magical capability. Now, in my youth, I never thought about it, but now, of course, I wonder, why did they always have access to marijuana in those communities? Who was providing that to keep people placated? I firmly believe the government did this. Just as now you can travel to any street corner in Richmond, California, just 40 miles per hour from 40 miles from where I'm sitting, and find anything you want on any street corner. So what is the plan, Stan? Well, let me tell you what it is. We want you, if you're going to start smoking marijuana, or if you have influence over anyone who is going to start smoking marijuana, we want you to ensure that they have the same good trip that you had when you first started, and I hope you did. I hope that you'll ensure that they have a way to introduce marijuana in their life that includes that spiritual element, that includes the preparation of the herb, that includes the distinct use of this weed in such a way as to ease your mind, as to allow you to go into a state that allows your mind to heal. We want you to smoke marijuana as part of a special ceremony, and we call it the 7-minute miracle. This works, ladies and gentlemen.
Minute.
If you have somebody in your life who's starting to smoke marijuana for the very first time or considering it, please ask them to consider the 7-minute miracle. This is where we ask you to pre-select 53 minutes of music that's important to you, that you would like to have surround you as you try something for the very first time that may alter your life. I'm talking about 7 minutes of your life.
The 7-minute miracle.
Where you find some marijuana, talk to a friend who smokes it, speak to someone who has knowledge and understands the power and beauty of this wonderful herb. Locate enough marijuana for you to get high, and for yourself, set away 1 hour of your life. And during that 1 hour, the first 7 minutes, I want you to smoke your brains out. I want you to try to get as high as you possibly can in 7 minutes. And then stop that smoking and prepare for something like you've never had before. That's our first program, The Spiritual Side of Cannabis. I'm Chaplain Dennis Keith Hale, and I want to thank you very much. Tune in again every week. Next week we're going to actually have some wonderful information for you as well. If this is your week to get high, and high it is, go for it. Chaplain Hale saying good night, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to our weekly moment of reflection and celebration, the spiritual side of cannabis. On behalf of this ministry of service, the Lighter Than Air Ministries, we say thank you for listening. Please join us again next week. Good night, and may you go with grace.